Emma was one of the quiet workers at a well-known, upscale restaurant in the center of Abuja. Her job was simple. She cleaned the floors, washed the toilets, and made sure every corner sparkled before the next wave of wealthy customers arrived. But when the restaurant closed each night and the staff disappeared, Emma stayed behind, doing something nobody noticed, begging the kitchen staff for scraps of leftover food. No one really paid her much attention. They didn't know where she went after work or what her story was. She was always quiet, always kept to herself. The restaurant she worked in was called the Golden Plate. It was a place of glamour glass, walls, shiny tiles, and velvet chairs. Expensive cars came and went every evening, carrying men and women dressed in designer clothes. The owner of the place was Mr. William, well-known, well-respected, and very wealthy. Everyone called him Sir Will. He wore the finest suits and shoes that reflected light like mirrors. Whenever he entered the restaurant, all the workers would stand up and greet him. "Good evening, sir." He would simply nod and say, "Carry on," then walk into his office upstairs. Mr. William was a man who noticed things, even when he said nothing. One night, after a very busy evening, at the Golden Plate, he stepped out of his office looking exhausted. He loosened his tie, headed down the stairs, and pressed the button on his car key. His black SUV responded with a beep. That's when he noticed someone standing near the vehicle. It was a woman standing quietly, not too close, but not far either. Her head was lowered. She was wearing the restaurant's cleaning uniform, brown with gold trimming. He frowned slightly. "Who's that?" he murmured. The restaurant was almost empty, except for a few cleaners wrapping up their work. Curious and cautious, Mr. William walked closer. As he approached, the woman looked up briefly, then dropped her eyes again. "You work in housekeeping, don't?" "You?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "My name is Emma." Her posture was nervous. Her hands were tightly clasped. She barely looked him in the eye. Mr. Williams studied her face, then asked, "Why are you standing near my car? Do you need something?" Emma bit her lip and took a breath. "Please, sir," she began, voice barely above a whisper, "I just wanted to ask if I can take home any leftover food from today." Mr. William paused, surprised by the request. "Leftover food?" he asked slowly. Emma nodded, still looking at the ground. "Yes, sir. Just if there's any. I don't want to waste anything." For a few moments, Mr. William didn't say anything. He simply stood there, staring at her. So many thoughts ran through his mind about the luxury his customers enjoyed, the food they left untouched, and the woman in front of him who was just asking for scraps. And that night, something stirred in his heart, because what he saw next, when he decided to follow her quietly, changed his life forever. A deep, heavy silence filled the air, one that seemed to press against the chest and make it harder to breathe. Mr. William looked at Emma again. She appeared drained, her shoulders drooping, her shoes worn thin. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He gave her a quiet nod. "All right," he said softly. Emma murmured a quick, "Thank you, sir," then turned and hurried back toward the kitchen. Mr. William remained standing next to his car. He didn't move. He didn't start the engine. He just stood there, eyes fixed on the kitchen door she had disappeared through. Something unfamiliar stirred in his chest, something he couldn't quite explain. Eventually, he opened the door and sat inside his vehicle. But he didn't turn the key. He simply leaned back in the seat, eyes closed, mind racing. Why would someone ask for leftover food? Not for money, not for help, just food. That thought wouldn't leave him. He opened his eyes and stared at the door again. Emma's voice echoed in his mind. It had been soft, but not because she was weak. She sounded exhausted, like someone fighting a silent battle. In her eyes, there was a kind of sadness in them, hidden but deep. He checked his watch. Almost 10 p.m. still. He didn't drive off. Something told him to wait. He wanted to know more. I'll stay, he told himself quietly. Minutes passed. Then the restaurant door creaked open. Emma stepped out slowly. She held two small black plastic bags. They didn't look heavy, but she clutched them close to her chest and started walking away with quick steps. Mr. William quietly sank lower into his seat. Once she was far enough, he turned the ignition, keeping his headlights off. The engine came alive, and he slowly drove after her, careful to keep a distance. Not close enough to scare her, but close enough to follow. Emma walked quickly, as if she was in a hurry to disappear into the night. A short while later, she reached a junction and boarded a small yellow bus. Mr. William watched it pull away, his eyes never leaving it. Without hesitation, he turned onto the road and followed it from behind. The bus was filled with people. The roads were bumpy. Streetlights were rare, and many didn't even work. But Mr. William didn't lose track. He kept going. After about 30 minutes, the bus finally came to a stop. Emma stepped off gently, still holding her plastic bags close. She didn't look around. She just turned into a small dusty path without hesitation. Mr. William parked far behind and turned off the engine. He stepped out slowly, careful not to make a sound. The area was quiet and dark. No shops, no proper houses, no cars, just silence and shadows. He walked a little further. Emma approached an old building. The structure looked forgotten. The walls were cracked, the roof rusted, the windows broken. It was the kind of place most people would avoid. Mr. Williams stopped and stared. "This is where she lives?" he whispered to himself. He couldn't believe it. It wasn't just poor, it was barely livable. The kind of place that felt abandoned. He took a deep breath and stepped back, his chest heavy. He couldn't understand what he was feeling. He stayed hidden in the shadows, still watching. When suddenly the old door creaked open, two little girls ran out barefoot, giggling with joy. "Mommy," one of them shouted, "you're back," cried the other. Emma dropped the bags and knelt down, wrapping both of them in a tight hug. Her smile was warm, full of love, but her face showed how tired she was. She kissed them on their foreheads, holding them close like she hadn't seen them in days. "I'm here, my sweethearts," Emma said gently as she knelt down. "I brought something for you." From where he stood in the shadows, Mr. William could see everything through a broken section of the wall. His heart was racing. "She's a mother," he whispered to himself, touching his chest like he needed to calm the ache forming there. Emma reached out and took her daughter's hands, guiding them softly into the crumbling building. Mr. William moved a little closer, careful not to be seen. Through the cracked window, he watched the scene unfold. Inside, Emma helped the girls settle on an old mat on the floor. Then she slowly opened the plastic bag she had carried all the way from work. She brought out a single piece of chicken and some jollof rice. With quiet care, she split the food in half and placed it onto two tiny plates. The girls reached for the plates with excitement, their little hands moving fast. They began eating quickly, mouths full, their eyes shining with happiness. Emma, however, didn't touch the food. She sat nearby on the bare floor, simply watching them. Her smile was soft and warm, but she didn't eat a single bite. Mr. William blinked as he observed the moment. His throat tightened. She brought food and gave all of it to her children, he thought, shaken. He looked at the plates. Then at Emma. Her stomach might have been empty, but her heart was full, simply watching her daughters eat. He turned away from the window and stood motionless in the darkness. Tears filled his eyes. He turned back again to look one last time, and there she was, still smiling, still watching over her girls, still not eating. Mr. William pressed a hand to his chest. A sudden pain gripped him, not physical, but emotional. It was the kind of ache that came when your soul felt something deeply. Looking up at the night sky, he murmured, she only asked for food not for herself, but for her children. He wiped the tears from his face. His hands trembled. That same woman he barely noticed at work, the quiet cleaner, was now someone who had stirred something deep in his heart. He glanced at the broken down home, then down at his perfectly polished shoes. In that moment, all his wealth felt meaningless. Slowly, with heavy steps, he walked back to his car. The street was silent except for the chirping of crickets. He opened the door, slid into the seat, but didn't start the engine. He just sat there, overwhelmed, thinking. His eyes still glistened with tears. Staring at the steering wheel, he whispered, I can't walk away. I have to help her. I will. Help her. Eventually, he turned on the ignition. The headlights lit up the dark street as he pulled away slowly. He looked back once more through the rearview mirror, at the broken house, at the life he now saw differently. That night, even. After reaching his grand home, Mr. William couldn't rest. He tossed and turned in bed. Sleep never came. His thoughts were filled with Emma, with her daughters, and with that one shared meal. As morning approached and soft rays of sunlight filtered into the old building, Emma was already awake. Eyes fell on her two little girls, still fast asleep on the mat. She smiled and gently brushed their hair with her fingers. Wake up, my angels, she said sweetly. The girls stirred. One of them rubbed her eyes and asked, Mommy, are we going to school today? Yes, sweetheart. Let's get you ready. Emma replied with calm joy. She helped them to their feet and carried a small bucket of water outside. Carefully, she poured water into a basin and bathed them one after the other with tender care. Using a small towel, she dried them, then brought out their neatly folded uniforms. She dressed them with pride, smoothing the creases and fixing their collars. Next, she combed their hair, parting it gently and tying it into two perfect little ponytails. She reached for the plastic bag from the night. Before just a small bit of rice remained. Enough for the girls, but not for herself. She warmed it over a small gas burner and served it in two tiny bowls. Then she placed them in front of the girls. Here, eat up before we head out, she said softly. The girls nodded and sat cross-legged on the floor, eating quietly. Emma watched her little girls as they ate, a warm smile on her face, but her eyes seemed distant, as if lost in thought. Once the plates were empty, she gathered their books and gently tucked them into their small school bags. She handed each girl a little bottle of water, then reached for the door. The sun had started to rise higher in the sky, casting a soft golden hue on the path ahead. The three of them walked slowly toward a nearby community school, not much to look at, with faded walls and no proper gate, but to the girls, it was a place of joy. At the school's entrance, Emma knelt down and pulled her daughters close in. A tight hug. Be good today, my darlings, she whispered, planting a gentle kiss on each forehead. Mommy will be back soon. The girls nodded and smiled, then ran off happily toward the school building. Emma stood there for a moment, watching them disappear through the doorway before turning around to head off to work. She knew she couldn't be late. At the Golden Plate restaurant, Emma changed into her uniform quickly. She tied her apron neatly, slipped on her work shoes, and joined the cleaning team. She moved with energy, sweeping the floors, mopping under tables, wiping chairs and counters until every surface gleamed. Her hands worked swiftly, but her face remained calm and kind. She didn't seem tired. She didn't show sadness. She even exchanged soft smiles with a few coworkers. That same morning, in a quiet office upstairs, Mr. Williams sat by the large window, but his gaze was empty, his mind somewhere else entirely. He could only think about Emma and the image of her daughters. He reached for his phone and made a call. Moments later, the HR manager knocked and stepped in. Good morning, sir. the manager greeted. Mr. William leaned forward, his voice steady but thoughtful. We have to do better. The manager looked puzzled. Sir? Our employees, Mr. Williams said. Some of them are struggling more than we know. The room went silent for a beat. I want their salaries increased, he continued. Start this month. Make sure no one leaves this place hungry. Yes, sir, the HR manager said quickly, then left the office. Mr. William leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. But all he could see in his mind was Emma again sitting on the floor, watching her. Daughters eat while she stayed hungry. He opened his eyes and whispered, she didn't even take a bite. Days went by. Emma continued her work with the same quiet grace. She was always early, always efficient, always kind. She cleaned the floors as if they were her own, polished the tables with care. She never arrived late. She never complained. She never asked for more than the kitchen scraps. At closing time each evening, she would slip quietly to the back and gently knock on the kitchen door. Please, is there any leftover food? She would ask politely. Sometimes all she got was a spoonful of rice, but she never frowned. She always said, thank you, with a soft smile, packed it neatly into her plastic bag, and went on her way. And all the while, Mr. William continued to observe from a distance. He hadn't spoken to her yet. He wasn't ready. But each day, he watched, and each night, her story echoed in his heart. How many more like her are suffering in silence? He wondered. Then one morning, as Emma was gently wiping down the tables, the head cook approached her with an unusual message. Boss wants to speak with you, he said. Emma paused and looked up, startled. Emma's chest tightened as she heard the words. Her heart raced. Did I do something wrong? She asked the cook softly, her voice trembling. The cook simply shook her head. I don't know. He just asked to see you. Emma wiped her damp palms on her apron and slowly made her way toward the office. Each step felt heavier than the last. Reaching the door, she gave a light knock. Come in, came Mr. Williams' calm voice from inside. Emma stepped in quietly, her head slightly bowed. Good morning, sir, she said, barely above a whisper. Please. Have a seat, Emma, Mr. Williams said with a gentle smile. She sat cautiously, unsure of what was about to unfold. For a few moments, silence filled the room. Then Mr. William leaned forward and spoke softly. Emma, I followed you the other night. Emma's eyes widened. Her heart skipped a beat. You followed me? She asked, startled. He nodded. Yes. I saw where you went after work. I saw your home. And your daughters. Emma lowered her gaze. Her hands began to tremble. Tears formed in her eyes as she tried to hold them back. I wasn't trying to cause trouble, she said, her voice breaking. I just wanted to make sure my children had something to eat. Mr. William gently shook his head. You didn't do anything wrong, he said sincerely. You're a good mother, Emma. You work hard. You're strong. Emma could no longer hold back the tears. They streamed silently down her cheeks. I want to help you, Mr. Williams said after a pause. Emma looked up, stunned. Her tear-filled eyes met his. The next day, Emma was called to the office once again. She walked in, unsure of what would happen next. Emma, Mr. William greeted with a smile. I have something to share with you. He handed her a sheet of paper. Emma scanned the words slowly, then looked up in disbelief. Personal assistant to the CEO, she whispered. Yes, he replied warmly. That's your new role. With it comes a better salary and more respect. You've earned this. Emma covered her mouth with her hands as fresh tears welled up, but Mr. William wasn't done. He rose from his chair and picked up a brown envelope from the table. There's more, he said softly. I bought a small apartment for you and your daughters. It's simple, but it's safe, clean, and has everything you need, light, water, and space for your girls to study and rest well. Emma's hands trembled as she clutched her chest. Sir, is this really for me? She asked, voice cracking. Mr. William nodded. Yes, Emma, you and your children deserve better. And there's more. Your daughters will be moved to a better school. No more sleeping on the floor. No more leftover meals. From now on, you won't have to ask for food ever again. At that moment, Emma dropped to her knees, overwhelmed with gratitude. Tears poured down her face as she sobbed. Thank you, sir. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. Mr. William walked over and smiled gently. You've given your all. Emma, you never complained, and you did everything with love. He opened a drawer and handed her a small white envelope. Here, he said. Get something special for dinner tonight for you and your girls. Emma took the envelope with both hands and pressed it close to her heart. God bless you. Sir, she whispered through her tears. You deserve it, Mr. Williams said, his voice full of warmth. That night, something had changed. Emma's tiny home no longer smelled of sadness. It was filled with the aroma of warm food, laughter, and something even richer. Hope. The scent filling the room was no longer just food, it was joy. Emma gently stirred the pot on a small stove. This time, it wasn't scraps. It was a real meal. Jollof rice, seasoned just right, and actual pieces of chicken sizzling in the sauce. Her two daughters sat nearby on a mat, their eyes wide with excitement. Mommy, you made so much chicken. The younger one giggled in surprise. Emma turned and smiled, warmth glowing in her face. Yes, sweetie. Today we're eating properly. When the food was ready, she carefully served 3 plates, one for each of them. The girls didn't wait a second. They grabbed their plates and began eating quickly, joyfully, their little hands moving fast. Mommy, said the older one between bites, this is the yummiest food ever. It tastes like heaven. Her sister chimed in, mouth full. Emma sat close, watching them with quiet gratitude. She didn't say much. Her smile did all the talking. Tears gathered in her eyes but didn't fall. For once, her children were eating without worry, laughing without fear. That moment was everything. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A sleek black car rolled to a stop in front of their humble home. Emma, standing by the door with her daughter's school bags in hand, blinked in confusion. The car door opened, and a well-dressed driver stepped out with a kind smile. Good morning. Ma'am, Mr. Williams sent me, he said respectfully. I'm here to take you to your new house. Emma froze for a second, unsure if she had heard him right. Then, turning to her daughters, she said with a shaky voice, Girls, go get your things. We're moving. They all climbed into the car together. The ride was silent, but their hearts were racing with joy. When they reached the new home, the girls jumped out and rushed toward the door, their voices ringing out with excitement. Mommy, we have our own beds. One screamed, There's a real kitchen. The other added, No more sleeping on the mat. The house stood proudly, clean walls, bright windows, and furniture that smelled fresh and new. Emma walked in slowly, her eyes scanning the space. She sat down gently on a soft chair in the middle of the living room. Her voice broke into a whisper. Thank you, God. Thank you so much. Her journey hadn't ended, but something better had begun, something filled with promise. The girls were now playing on the floor with pillows, their laughter echoing through the new home. Emma watched them from the chair, her eyes moving from the ceiling to the walls. Still in awe, then her phone rang. She picked it up and saw Mr. Williams' name on the screen. Her heart skipped. She answered, Good morning, sir. Emma, came his calm voice. I just wanted to check on you and your girls. Are you settling? It okay? Yes, sir, she replied softly. We're fine. Thank you again for everything. There was a brief pause. Then he said gently, Emma, don't come in today. She blinked. Sir, take the day off, he said with a reassuring tone. Spend time in your new home. Cook something nice. Sit with your daughters. Today is yours. Emma placed a hand over her heart, her voice shaking. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You deserve it, Emma, he replied warmly. Enjoy your day. The call ended, and as Emma looked around her new living room, the laughter of her children still filling the air, her eyes sparkled with tears, not of sorrow, but of gratitude. This wasn't just a new home. It was a new beginning. Emma gently pressed the phone against her chest, her eyes still misty with emotion. She stood up and walked slowly into her new kitchen. Everything looked spotless, fresh tiles, polished counters, and shining utensils. With a grateful smile, she opened the cabinet and pulled out some rice and colorful vegetables as she started preparing the meal. Her daughters skipped into the kitchen, their faces lit up with excitement. Mommy, what are you cooking? One of them asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Emma turned around and reached out to them. Holding their small hands in hers, she smiled warmly. This is our first meal in our new home, she said with quiet joy. Before doing anything else, she paused. Before we eat, she said softly, let's say thank you. The girls nodded. They closed their eyes, and together they said a simple prayer words full of gratitude and hope. Their journey had been long and painful, but this moment marked a fresh start, filled with blessings, faith, and love. Dear friend, this story is a gentle reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life forever. Behind every quiet smile, there may be a silent struggle. Emma never asked for pity. She worked hard, she stayed strong, and she never lost her faith. And then there was Mr. William, a man who chose to look closer, to listen, and to step in when it mattered. His kindness turned an entire family's darkness into light. The message is simple. If you have the power to help someone, do it. Your kindness might be the miracle someone's been praying for. What touched you most in this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. And guess what? A brand new inspiring story is coming your way in just a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to watch when it drops. If this story moved you, please like, share, and spread the message of hope and compassion. Thank you so much for watching. I deeply appreciate you.